Iron Maiden are finally back on the road with the second leg of their The Future Past tour.
It's great to be back.
So let's discuss some differences between this and last year, talk about the band's form and especially that of Nicko McBrain, and then discuss what we may expect from the band in the nearest future. Here you go. Real quick before we start, guys, as always, please do not hesitate to comment on anything you hear or see in this video, and especially if you disagree with me, because the whole point of our Up the Irons series is of course to start a conversation among the Iron Maiden fans. But alright, let's do it! Just as we all expected and predicted in the previous videos, the setlist with which Iron Maiden came to the world down under this year is exactly the same as the one Steve Harris and the boys played on the first leg of the Future Past tour in 2023, opening the concert with an enchanting Blade Runner theme, which perfectly fits with the futuristic atmosphere of the stage and the overall entourage of the Future Past show, and then exploding in energy with the legendary intro to Caught Somewhere in Time. And of course, not only the rest of the setlist from the Perth show in Australia, but also the overall production and the band routine on stage has evoked a very strong feeling of a déjà vu, which I guess is very ironic, given it is one of those songs from my beloved Somewhere in Time album, which I personally would love for Iron Maiden to finally play live, and I actually think it is an absolute crime against humanity that we still did not get to hear it being performed from the stage.
Deja vu.
But anyways, despite what many people believed, Iron Maiden did not make even a slightest change to their setlist, and yet there was something different in it compared to when it was performed in 2023. It is no secret that on the Future Past tour, Iron Maiden performs 5 songs from each Somewhere in Time and their latest album Senjutsu, as well as just several of their well-known hits. And while the song selection from their 1986 album did not really raise any eyebrows, some casual Iron Maiden fans did criticize the choice of the tracks from Senjutsu, more specifically such as The Time Machine or Death of the Celts. And if we're being very honest, even though such die-hard fans as, for example, myself, did enjoy every minute of that show and loved every track from that setlist, for many others, those songs were not the ones that excited them much, and you could actually notice it by simply looking at the crowd when Iron Maiden performed those. But and I don't know why exactly, maybe because this album is a bit more familiar to the fans now, but at least from the videos from Perth, it does look like the Australian fans were much more enthusiastic about Death of the Celts, Days of Future Past, and The Time Machine in 2024. Which I think is a great thing, and kind of confirms that pretty much every song on Senjutsu, I guess, is a grower. And even if you don't like some of them right away, there is a very, very high chance that you actually will consider them to be the classics 20 years from today. One of the questions which bothers pretty much every fan of any classic legacy metal band is the form of its members and whether they are still able to deliver the goods. And here comes a rather interesting thing. Talking about the voice of Iron Maiden, if we compare the Perth show to Ljubljana last year, both being the opening nights of the Future Past tour legs, we can hear that Bruce sounds much stronger than he did last year right from the first notes of the show. And this, of course, can be the case because A, he's much more familiar and thus much more confident with the material, and B, despite what many people were afraid of, his solo tour actually worked as a perfect warm-up for his run with Iron Maiden. In fact, I don't remember the last time Bruce sounded like this on the first night of the tour. And of course, the most important question of all, a question which the future of our favorite band directly depends on, is how is Nicko McBrain?
How? 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 I don't know.
So, is Nicko McBrain able to perform on exactly the same level he did back in the golden era of the 1980s? Well, in all honesty, I can't really say so. But neither can Nicko.
It ain't the old Nicko. It's not the old one by a long shot, but at least it's part of me.
And I could ride the wave of hype and talk about each drum fill Nicko McBrain did and did not do on this concert. But I'd never do that because I don't really even care, as I can't think of even one drummer who sounds exactly the same in his 70s as he did back in his 30s. Not even talking about someone who just had a stroke a little over a year ago. And secondly, despite his age and all the health issues, Nicko today in 2024 actually does sound much stronger and more confident than he did at the start of the 2023 tour. He even sounds stronger than at the start of his Titanium Tar tour he did as a warm-up before his main gig. And although some parts of the live performance are slightly altered compared to the studio versions, it is still a God's blessing we are able to hear Nicko McBrain pounding those drums the way he does today in 2024. And in all honesty, this is already much more than any Iron Maiden fan could have possibly asked for. And I know that the guys watch my videos from time to time, so in case you do watch this one, Michael Henry McBrain, you're a legend and a true warrior and inspiration for all of us. And the dedication you show to your music, your band, and your fans is second to none. So thank you, Nicko, for doing everything you can to keep this band alive and still being the best looking block in the band.
I'm still the best looking one in the band though, don't you think?
And of course, in addition to all that, it is great to see that the atmosphere in the band seems pretty great once again, with the boys' interaction on stage being as lighthearted as ever, although I assume that someone have gotten pretty pissed backstage for sounding slightly out of tune at the beginning of the show. But anyways, it looks like the boys are really enjoying it being on the road, or as Bruce Dickinson himself calls it, being on an Iron Maiden vacation together. And it is always great to see that. Just as it is great to see that karma can work in really hilarious manners. Now, I rarely speak about this on the show, but this time I felt like I kinda have to. One of the changes this tour had compared to 2023 is the updated merch line, with now finally having some single artwork prints available for the fans, including of course the one which everyone requested the most, Alexander the Great Eddie with his army of, well, Eddies. And in addition to that, Australian fans have gotten one of the coolest local t-shirts in a long time, a very old school and almost vintage looking diver Eddie holding a cyborg shark and exploring the Great Barrier Reef. What I absolutely love about it is the amount of small little details, which are included in a way very similar to how it has been done back in the 80s, as not only the shark is styled to fit the Somewhere in Time aesthetics, but also the crab at the bottom of the picture also gives a clear nod to Wasted Years and Stranger in Strangeland, and the Great Reef itself hides countless of Eddie references in itself as well, which I thought was really cool and thoroughly thought through. And here I guess would be a nice place to point out that if you would like to support the Metal Pilgrim show and rock some Metal Pilgrim merch at one of the upcoming Iron Maiden or any other band's shows, you can actually order it at metalpilgrim.net, and I'll be more than happy to send it pretty much anywhere around the world. And just in case if you decide to do that, thank you guys, because it really does help me out quite a lot. So is it still worth seeing Iron Maiden today in 2024? Well, I think you know the answer to that question. Of course it is! And especially if you are a die-hard Iron Maiden fan, because as I always say, this tour is the tour for the fans. And it might actually be one of the last chances for any of us to hear some of these songs live. I'll run a little bit ahead of myself here. First of all, no. Iron Maiden are not planning to take any breaks, no matter what anyone says online. In fact, I actually do know for a fact that next year, Iron Maiden are not gonna sit still. Believe me, they won't, and they will bless us with an incredible tour. And maybe something else as well. but which songs will they play on that tour, only God knows. No, I'm actually quite serious. I'm not even sure that Steve Harris and the team know 100% which setlist they will perform in 2025. But what I do know for a fact is that the Future Past tour will leave you speechless if you are, just like myself, have been imagining what it would be like to finally hear Alexander the Great live, and we're dreaming about this band giving more and more justice to the beloved 1986 album. So if you do have a chance of witnessing this tour live in 2024, and especially if you did not catch it last year in 23, just freaking do it. Believe me, you won't regret it. But anyways, what do you guys personally think about this leg of the tour, and do you think that Iron Maiden should have actually changed the set list for this leg of the Future Past tour? Please let us know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching this short video, guys, and more than anything, thank you so much for supporting me, this show, and Ukraine through this very, very difficult time. We will prevail. Slava Ukraini!